It started like most days did. Movement without much awareness. The body got up, moved through the usual steps, and arrived in the usual places, all while the mind ran ahead or drifted behind. Minutes disappeared. Small choices got made without being felt as choices. A day got spent before it even seemed to begin. And in that quiet blur, one fact stayed hidden in plain sight. Most of life passed through unnoticed. Nothing dramatic forced a change. It came from a simple suspicion that the routine had been doing the living, not the person. The same commute, the same work, the same conversations had been happening, but they had been happening at a distance. The realization landed with weight. If attention never arrived, experience never fully arrived either. So a decision formed, specific and testable. For the next 24 hours, everything would be met on purpose. The plan stayed practical, not mystical. No new schedule, no retreat, no special tools. Just a rule. Notice what usually got skipped. The next sip of coffee, the next sentence heard, the next feeling in the chest, the next impulse to check a screen. Each one became a checkpoint. It sounded easy. It rarely was. Because the moment the experiment began, it exposed how often attention slipped away and how quickly autopilot fought to take control again. The 24-hour test began with a simple move. The person tried to aim attention on purpose, like turning a flashlight instead of letting it swing. It felt unlimited at first, but it never was. Attention had stayed small, even when the world had stayed big. The moment they picked one thing to notice, everything else had faded. That trade-off started immediately. Sounds still arrived, images still landed on the eyes, but attention decided what got processed and what got dropped. It acted like a filter, sorting a flood into a thin stream the mind could handle. A passing thought got ignored, a small movement got highlighted, a familiar noise got dismissed as background. The brain had not taken in everything. It had taken in what attention had chosen. That difference mattered because seeing and hearing had not guaranteed awareness. Without attention, information stayed unclaimed, like mail left unopened. With attention, the same input became vivid, organized, and believable. The person learned the hard part. Attention did not simply reveal reality, it helped build it. What was selected felt real, and what was filtered out might as well have never happened. The first hour began with ordinary tasks, but they unfolded differently. Walking, washing hands, reaching for keys. Each action carried tiny signals that usually slipped by. A faint tightness in the shoulders, the exact moment the kettle began to rise in pitch. The pattern of footsteps changing on different ground. Nothing dramatic happened, and that was the point. With attention turned on, the day stopped feeling like one smooth blur and started breaking into clear, countable pieces. Then the strange part showed up. Noticing more did not mean noticing everything. A small object sat in plain sight and still got missed simply because the mind aimed elsewhere. A familiar route hid a new sign. A sound blended into the background until it was searched for. The brain filtered without asking permission, keeping the chosen target and discarding the rest. The world stayed full, but experience stayed narrow. Important things remained present, yet they effectively vanished. That gap had a name: inattentional blindness. It explained why people swore something was not there when it was, clearly, right in front of them. The first hour made it personal. When attention landed on a detail, it became undeniable. Shape, timing, sensation, all sharpened at once. When attention drifted, the same detail might as well not have existed. This was not a flaw of eyesight, it was a rule of the mind. Attention decided what counted as real. The next test did not come from inside the mind, it came from outside. A notification arrived, then another, each one asking for a tiny look, a tiny response. The subject tried to keep the experiment going while also keeping up. Messages, updates, quick checks. It all felt manageable at first, but attention did not stretch. It split, and the moment it split, the day started to feel thinner. They tried to do two things at once: follow a task to completion and stay available for whatever lit up the screen. Their hands moved, their eyes jumped, their thoughts restarted over and over. Each return cost something. A sentence got reread, a step got repeated. The mind carried two unfinished threads, and neither felt solid. Multitasking looked busy from the outside. From the inside, it felt like losing the plot. Then the evidence showed up quietly in the mistakes. A missed detail, a wrong number, a message sent too fast with the wrong tone. The subject felt productive because so many small actions happened in a row, but accuracy dropped. What seemed like efficiency turned into extra cleanup later. Context switching created the illusion of progress while stacking errors in the background. Divided attention did not just reduce focus, it reduced trust in the work. By midday, the experiment stopped being only about what was seen and heard. Attention turned inward, and it worked the same way. One thought got picked out of hundreds, and once it did, it grew. A small worry became a full story. A brief irritation became a mood. The mind filled in reasons, predictions, and blame, all powered by one simple thing. Attention stayed there. It felt automatic, like the feeling caused the focus, but the order often ran the other way. Focus made the feeling feel bigger, more permanent, more personal. The body tightened, the breath shortened, and the mind searched for proof. Then came the loop. The more the story seemed true, the more attention fed it. It did not need new events. It only needed continued looking. Then a different move appeared, almost disappointingly simple. The subject labelled what happened as thinking, as worry, as anger, without arguing with it. Attention shifted to a slower breath, then to contact points on the ground, then back to the room. Nothing outside got solved, yet the feeling changed anyway. The story softened, the body released, and attention proved it could let go on purpose. By the time the day reached other people, attention stopped being private. It showed up in small choices: eyes that stayed, a head that turned fully, a pause that made room. Most conversations usually ran on prediction, half heard and half finished. But when someone actually listened, the exchange slowed down. The other person filled the space with more detail, more honesty. The tone shifted first, then the meaning. Social attention worked through micro cues that almost never got named. A glance that checked a phone broke the thread. A quick nod at the wrong moment steered the story away from what mattered. But steady eye contact, patient silence, and repeating back a key point changed what happened next. People corrected themselves, clarified, and went deeper. Misunderstandings dropped. The conversation became less like trading information and more like building trust in real time. And the effect did not stay abstract. When attention landed cleanly, people felt valued and they responded differently. They offered cooperation faster. They shared concerns sooner, before they hardened into conflict. Even disagreements softened because they felt heard, not managed. Attention acted like respect made visible. It also carried influence because what got noticed tended to grow. Over hours and days, this changed relationships in ways that could be counted. Fewer repeat arguments, quicker repair, stronger loyalty. Later, the experiment turned practical. A simple skill got chosen, not for talent, but for proof. The subject practiced it slowly, with full attention, and the difference showed up fast. Each attempt got compared to the last. Small errors stopped being bad, and started being information. The work stopped feeling like time spent. It started feeling like a loop. Try, notice, adjust. At first, repetition on autopilot produced the same result again and again. The hands moved, the minutes passed, and improvement stayed flat. Then the rules changed. Attention narrowed to one tiny piece at a time. Timing, pressure, accuracy. Mistakes got isolated instead of ignored. Feedback arrived immediately, either from the result itself or from a quick check against a clear target. Progress followed attention, not effort. This was deliberate practice, and it demanded discomfort. It required staying with the part that kept failing, right where the mind wanted to drift away. The subject repeated less but learned more because every repetition carried a decision. That focus created refinement, a correction made, then tested, then kept or thrown out. By the end, the skill looked smoother, but the real change was invisible. Attention had become the accelerator. By the middle of the day, something subtle changed. The same errands and messages kept arriving, but they stopped carrying equal weight. When attention landed on what mattered, health, family, craft, honesty, small choices started feeling connected to a larger direction. A postponed call no longer seemed minor. A rushed promise no longer felt harmless. Attention filtered the day, and the filter looked like values. Then attention tried a different target, gratitude, not as a mood, but as a focus. When it stayed with what went right, a working body, a kind gesture, a meal, a quiet moment, complaints lost some of their pull. The problems still existed, but they stopped being the whole story. The mind treated noticed positives as evidence. Satisfaction did not arrive from new facts. It came from chosen emphasis. Beauty worked the same way, even in ordinary places. When attention paused for a pattern, a sound, a bit of light, the moment gained weight. Time did not slow down, but it felt less wasted. And that revealed the turning point of the experiment. Attention did not just observe reality, it judged what counted. What it returned to became important, and what felt important shaped purpose minute by minute. By the end of the 24 hours, the experiment stopped feeling inspiring and started feeling heavy. The same mind that had noticed tiny details earlier now reached for shortcuts. Focus slipped in small ways first, wandering thoughts, half-finished actions, a sudden pull toward anything easier. Fatigue did what notifications could not. It lowered the guard. Attention still mattered, but it no longer obeyed sheer intention. The limit finally showed itself. The subject tried to push through, and the result proved a hard lesson. When willpower ran the show, it worked only until it didn't. Each time attention broke, it took extra time to return, and the day started to fracture again. That failure did not mean the experiment had failed. It meant the strategy had. So the goal changed from trying harder to making distraction harder. Before the 24 hours ended, the subject built an attention environment for tomorrow. Defaults went first. Fewer alerts, fewer open loops, fewer easy exits into noise. Boundaries followed, clear start and stop points for tasks, and protected blocks where switching simply was not allowed. Then rituals, small, repeatable cues that told the brain what came next. The experiment ended with a shift. Attention improved most when the system carried the load. Life kept speeding up, feeds refreshed, headlines piled on, and every spare second got claimed by something that asked for a click. In that noise, attention had become a commodity, not a choice. But the baseline had shifted. The day no longer began with reflex scrolling, it began with a decision. One task first, one screen later, one clear breath before anything else grabbed the mind. The practices looked small, almost boring, but they ran through everything. Notifications stayed off by default. Messages got answered in blocks, not in fragments. Media got chosen like food, not grabbed like candy. When stress rose, attention went to the body instead of the story. When another person spoke, the phone stayed away. The result was not constant calm. It was fewer hijackings. Over time, the proof showed up in ordinary moments. Paying attention changed what got noticed, so the world offered more detail and fewer blanks. It changed emotion because feelings no longer grew unchecked in the dark. It changed relationships because people felt heard without extra effort. It changed learning because focus turned mistakes into feedback. The same day returned, but it felt chosen, not automatic.